Rocket Racer has been out for nearly 2 weeks now, and honestly I did not play the tutorial like I probably should have, so I went into my early races not really knowing too much about the game other than the fact that it's a racing game. So in today's video I'll be going over 5 tips that I wish I knew before playing Rocket Racer to hopefully help many of you out and improve your experience. Now before I do get into that, make sure you are subscribed to the channel with the notification bell turned on to never miss a piece of Rocket Racer and sports gaming content. So the first tip I have for you is at the very start of a race. As the lights are counting down to begin the race, if you press R2 on a PlayStation controller or RT on an Xbox controller, as soon as the green light appears, you will then get a boost, and the closer you time it to the green light actually going up, the more boost you'll get, and you'll know because it comes up with a percentage. So it really is all about your reaction times here, or just trying to learn the clock so that you know exactly when to press it. Tip number 2 is to do with drifting. Now in Rocket Racer you can just drift by turning left or right, and it's pretty easy to do as it essentially just happens automatically, and when you drift you gain a boost meter and then you actually boost when you go straight. But if you press square on a PlayStation controller or X on an Xbox controller, you actually essentially drift boost, and this means that you can have a tighter angle, and I didn't even know this until my 3rd race or so, and that was only because a pop-up came up and told me to do it, and it definitely changed the way I play quite considerably. And like I said, it means you can get a tighter angle, which will then help to build up your boost meter even more, and just like standard drifting it will propel you forward, but because you get a bigger boost meter you'll go even further, whilst also filling up your standard boost meter quicker than you otherwise would. On the topic of boosts, tip number 3 is that you can chain your boosts to get a stupidly high speed and charge through the field. Assuming you already have a boost bar at the ready, if you drift round a corner and gain some extra speed after boosting from that, then if you use your boost, which will then allow you to get even more speed if you time it properly with triangle on the PlayStation controller, if you do all of that and you go through a speed boost on the ground at the exact same time as all of this happening, you can then reach speeds of above 1,200 kilometers per hour, which is essentially double the speed of the car with no boost whatsoever, which is just absolutely mental. It's also something that probably won't really happen too often, but it is worth keeping in mind when you're using your boosts, because it can make all the difference if you chain your boosts properly. And the other day I was doing a race which I did this, and it took me from 8th place all the way to 3rd or 4th in the final stretch of the race, so it's definitely a super useful thing to do. Tip number 4 is also related to drifts. I've kind of already mentioned it already, but the tighter you drift around a corner, the faster your boost meter will go up. So if you have a pretty sharp bend coming up, I'd honestly recommend making that turn even tighter so that you can just drift around it, get even more boost and send forward. Even though you might not necessarily have the racing line like you'd like, the additional boost will probably put you further forward than someone taking the racing line. And given this game is all about drifting and high speeds, I honestly think this is a better way to do it than just taking the racing line and drifting only a tiny bit. I'd even just recommend doing this on any turn, even if it's a fairly flat one. If you yourself create the angle, you can drift a bit harder, get some extra boost and send it forward. And whilst you're doing all of this, your standard boost meter will then go up even quicker, which means you have more opportunities to boost throughout the track. Now the 5th and final tip I have for you is slipstreaming. Assuming you're not in 1st place and you've got cars pretty close in front, if you go directly behind that car, you will then start to catch the slipstream and gain additional speed, which will then get you closer and closer to a point where you're actually going to be able to overtake that car. Now it's worth noting that the minute you come out of that slipstream you will start to slow down again, and slipstreaming is a pretty basic thing that's in a lot of video games, and it's a very natural thing to happen with racing as well. So it's not crazy exciting that it's in the game, but it is a very useful thing to do. So if you are falling behind, make sure you are driving behind someone and catch that slipstream so you can go even further forward. So guys, they are the 5 tips I have for you for Rocket Racer. Like I said, I didn't play the tutorial, so all of these are pretty basic things, but I think they're absolutely all worth noting just in case you didn't know. And even if one person learned something about Rocket Racer from this video, then honestly this video is complete for me. If you have any additional tips to share about Rocket Racer, then do feel free to add them in the comments, and let me know what other type of Rocket Racer content you'd like to see in the comments as well. That is it from me today though. Thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you out on the track.